Ever since the last TT episode, this car has been on my mind pretty much non-stop. It's in a very interesting spot, and honestly, there's a number of things this car needs. So I've been thinking about it for a good reason. It needs a handful of random fixes. Along with that, the wrap could definitely use some improvements in parts. But the thing that's been taking up the most space in my head is the decision that we need to make. And I don't really think we should wait too much longer to finalize it. After all, I don't like waiting. And the sooner we decide, the sooner we can get parts on the way. So in addition to making some improvements to the car this week, I say we get the turbo plan rolling. It'll be well worth it. You would think that with as many actionable items as we have for this car, that would be the first concern I dealt with this weekend. However, in this case, you'd be wrong. Do you remember the construction that I've been alluding to in the last couple episodes? We've managed to dodge it for quite a while, but I think our luck may have run out. There is roughly a 3-inch drop from concrete to gravel surrounding the entire street we need to drive on to get the car into the garage. That's why we're able to use the garage in the first place. But before we can do anything, we've got to see if the car will make it in. And it's really close. I was spot on in my assumption that the S4 would not be able to make it in or out. At this point, I don't know if the TT can get out of this area, but it was able to make it in. And that's all that really matters right now. On this drive here, I also couldn't help but thinking that this was actually shaping out to be a pretty solid weekend to work on the TT's wrap. There's a number of panels that I would like to redo, and the last couple weeks that's been out of the question simply because it's been too warm. This week, however, our weather is very weird. It's actually only about 75 or 80 degrees, but we do have a weird amount of wildfire smoke. So as long as that doesn't get any worse in the short time frame I need it to, we should be able to make a good amount of progress. First things first, we've got to switch the cars though. I backed the TT over the ledge and into the garage, and this was actually for a couple reasons. While I might not be working on the turbo project this episode, that doesn't mean we won't get started before the construction ends, so we might as well be prepared. And after giving the car a little bit of a sponge bath, the wrap was clear enough to work on. And to be honest, there's a number of panels that, in my opinion, turned out terrible. But everything on the car was a first attempt, so I was absolutely expecting this. And it was my intention all along to redo all of the ones that have issues. And since the weather is finally complying, let's get started. You might have noticed some patches on the top of the side skirts that weren't there the last time we looked at the car. And they're there for a reason. When we first attempted the side skirt, we were able to do it all in one panel. However, with the nature of this car's paint peeling, the angle that we had to bend the vinyl in order to get it to sit flat on the inside of the door jamb, the top part of the side skirts in other words, was harsh enough that it was pulling the paint off and lifting. So rather than redoing the entire side skirt to try and fix this, I figure we can use the body crease to hide another seam. And depending on how this looks, we might just end up redoing the whole thing, but for now, this might be a really good chance to test this. After all, I am definitely still learning what techniques are best to use where, and this seems like a case where hiding a crease might be beneficial, mostly because using the second piece to just cover the top allows us to set it in there fully relaxed. That way it's not really going to be putting any pressure on the paint itself, and it's going to sit flat, hopefully without lifting. But we won't really know until we try. And quite honestly, I think this is going to look really good. Since there's already a natural crease in the body lines there, you can't really see the seam at all, unless you really know what to look for. So I'll keep you guys updated on if this lifts or not, and if we like it, we can try it on the other side. The next panel I think we should adjust is the lower part of the rear bumper. And there's about every issue under the sun here. I had to put a patch on it because there was a little cut towards the back. That's why there's the little rectangular piece. But the worst issue is that it was lifting throughout the entire top part. We tried a technique where we tucked the vinyl into the body line itself, but there was nothing for it to really grab onto. So I did a little bit of research, and I think the best way for us to tackle this is actually going to be to run the top part a little bit further than we initially were planning. Rather than trying to cut it effectively at the edge of the bottom panel, we'll leave it about half an inch longer so it overlaps with the vinyl above it. That way it's got something to grab onto and we can tuck it relaxed into the crease itself. Plus, we should be able to remove the eyesore that was the little patch I had to toss in there. And if we can accomplish both of those things with this, I'm gonna call this part a success. This is a pretty strange part of the vinyl wrapping process, and it really only occurs when you're a beginner and are learning. By all definitions, the car is entirely vinyl wrapped at this point. So what we're doing is simply redoing panels that have already been done in order to make the overall car better. I figure we can integrate this into as many episodes as we need to until the wrap is actually to a point where I am proud of it. Currently, it's pretty far from that, but I think after we make some improvements, it's going to look a lot better. Even just the skirts and the rear bumper were two of the largest issues that people would notice, so having these done is going to be a lot better. To be honest, I've been struggling a little bit to pride myself on having done the wrap for this car. While the technique I used was a lot better than on the S4, the surface that I was wrapping on actually wasn't. The TT's peeling paint might have issues down the line that we won't really know about. Anywhere that the vinyl is applying tension has a chance to simply lift the paint up underneath it. And with that in mind, that's where a good amount of these issues actually came from. So in order to actually make this car good, we're just gonna have to play the waiting game and fix issues as they come up, starting with the larger issues and then eventually moving into the less noticeable ones. And then, hopefully, at the end of all of that, I'll eventually be proud of the car. At least, that's the hope. And as you can see, we were actually able to get this entire lower part of the bumper done in the way that I was planning. It's all one piece, and it seems to be holding a lot better than before, so I'd call this an absolute win. At this point, I was ready to jump back into a rear quarter panel. I would like to redo both of them with a better game plan, but that's gonna have to wait. If it's not one thing, it's another, and this time it wasn't because of the heat. I was so fixated on improving the wrap that I failed to notice just how smoky it got outside, to the point where I should probably not be doing much outside. And even though we're sitting in a garage, the garage door is open. So for the safety of my lungs, we're gonna have to wait a little bit to fix the rest of the car. It is pretty trippy to look at though. And for reference, these fires aren't really from anywhere close to me. I live in the middle of a couple wind channels, so a good amount of this is blown in from far away. Still really eerie though. Since we've got all this extra time now, we should get the turbo ball rolling. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the TT's turbo is dying. And in the last TT episode, we debated the pros and cons of the two different general approaches to fixing it, going with a drop-in and bolt-on hybrid setup, or spending the time and extra money creating a custom big turbo setup for the car. We made a decision and literally sat with it. I figured having made the decision would make me realize if I wanted the other option the whole time, and this envelope has been with me for the most part ever since. So during this whole time, what exactly was I leaning towards? To be honest, my pragmatic side was telling me that a hybrid turbo was the logical choice. It was cheaper, bolt-on, and one package. So I guess you could say it's the one that I should pick. It's the least risky, and it makes a lot of sense. And with that decided, I guess done deal. All we've got to do is get started. It just wasn't sitting with me right, though. The hybrid option is really logical. It's safe, it's cheap, and it makes sense. I'm not arguing with that at all. But the hybrid just doesn't feel like it's doing this car, or the series for that matter, justice. We've spent a lot of time and effort on every aspect of this car and this series. And sure, the hybrid is logical. But who says you always need to make logical decisions? The romance of hours of research, finding bits and pieces, parts from different manufacturers, and combining them through your own design to make a bespoke turbo kit for your car. Not to mention all the learning that's going to happen through that process. That is what I'm after. That, to me, is worth the cost of admission, and all the risk that comes along with it. So while hybrids are wonderful options, I don't think this car's getting one. The future of this car is kind of up in the air at the moment, and I don't mean that in like a bad way or anything. What I really mean is that I, at this point, have a plan to build a custom turbo kit for the car, and then eventually upgrade the engine as well. But at this point, all that is simply that, a plan. There are a lot of unknowns here, and I'm going to be going into this from the perspective of a complete beginner, including my decision process for everything that I'm ordering for this, and how I'm learning to actually build this entire system. It's going to be a lot, and I don't know how long it's going to take. What I do know is that it's going to be worth it, so I hope you're excited. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. That's the best way you can support me and my content. Either way, I'll see you guys next episode. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.